So we are absolutely delighted tonight, and it's a great honor, in fact, to welcome Dr. Füssel. Dr. Füssel, of course, is very much the architect of our animal health legislation and related legislation. He has been with the EU for many, many years, longer than I can remember, certainly way before I joined the scene, and is really a great expert in this field. Welcome, Dr. Füssel, also from me, and thank you for joining us. We're really looking forward to tonight's presentation. You will find there is a lot of technical information contained on the slides. Some of it goes into a lot of detail, and I know I'm very aware that many of you don't speak English as your first language. So you will find it beneficial, I think, to look at those slides again in your own time. And they're very comprehensive, they're very detailed, and they're very clear. And I'm sure you'll find it useful. So you will all get a link, of course, after this webinar to the webinar recording, and you will have access to those slides to look at them again. And we highly recommend that you do so. A couple of things on housekeeping today, because we have this very detailed and very comprehensive presentation. Dr. Füssel will present first, and afterwards there will be opportunity for you to ask questions in a Q&A session. May I ask that anybody who does want to contribute to the Q&A do so by using the chat. That way we can keep a record of your questions, and that will be very helpful to us in the end. If there's any issue that needs further exploration after the webinar, we can then do so. Can I please also ask you not to post anonymously, because it will be impossible for us to get back to you with any further details if you need them, if you're posting anonymous. The last and obvious point is, can I please ask everybody to mute themselves so that we don't have any disruption to Dr. Fussel's presentation. I think those are the really important points. I should also say we're also joined here by Morgan Lee-Bott, who is also a member of our World Breeding Federation office. So thank you very much, Morgan, for also being here. And of course, thank you to Nadine for the introduction. And without further ado, I'm going to hand us all over into the very capable hands of Dr. Füssel. Welcome, Dr. Füssel.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. Yes, as you explained, I have been working for the EU Commission, in particular for DG SANTE, for almost 30 years. And from the very start of my career with the EU, I was in charge of all aspects of the horses, from health to breeding, and including also the competition. So I will now share with you my screen. Can you actually already see something?
Yes, we can. I can certainly see it.
You can see the first slide.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So now you see the second one.
Yes.
Good. Thank you. Okay. So that's the main document. So let's go to the very beginning to understand the EU legislation in this area. We have a single market, common market, where the first step was to abandon the customs fees, and it was a customs union. When the customs union was established, there was still member states tried to protect their markets through various, and in the area of animal health, through animal health requirements. So the EU harmonized the animal health requirements for the trade between member states of certain animals and germinal products. When all this was basically done, a new idea came to the minds of the member states, like maybe we can use certain breeding aspects to protect our markets. So also this aspect was harmonized. And at the end of the day, and only relevant for the horses, they say, yeah, but with this access to the certain competitions, we should try to protect our market and not allow everybody to come to our competitions. And also, this aspect was at the end of the day harmonized. Why I say this? We always have to understand that the aim of all this legislation is to avoid and to overcome obstacles to trade and to minimize risks arising from trade. That means the movement of animals or germinal products. So that is the basic idea of the whole EU legislation, at least in the area of animals and their trade. Now, with regard to the breeding legislation, of course, everybody is allowed to reproduce animals. That is not regulated in the EU or at EU level. There might be national provisions, but the principle is you can reproduce animals. But if you want to be a breeder, and now I refer to this slide, that means you want to make you give an input into the improvement of the breed, then of course the best way is to follow the legislation on breeding. And your problem, as I understood from the question that was...
Sorry, Dr. Füssel, I'm sorry to jump in, but if you can go on presentation mode, we will be able to see your slides a little bit better. Then it'll be bigger on the screen, so we can read your writing as well.
Yes, of course. Sorry.
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you so much.
So the problem what was how I was approached with was, okay, all the various documents that you need in the context of breeding. But again, it's very simple. As a breeder, you want that your product, that means the foal, will be entered in a stud book. And the best was if it was in the premium class of the stud book. It's true. That is the purpose of your breeding. Otherwise, you multiply animals and you are happy with them and they are lovely animals, no problem. But if you want to be want to promote and to develop the genetics, and also you want to have the animals entitled to participate in certain restricted competitions, such as the Bundeschampionats, for example, then of course you want to have the animals entered in a particular stud book. So that is the topic. That is your problem. And how was this regulated before? In fact, it was said that you can always or you have the right to request the entry of a foal in a particular class of the stud book if you can prove that the mother and the father, they were in the stud book, and the foal was identified as foal at foot of the mother. So this was very simple. You presented the foal together with the mother, and you prove that the father, the stallion, and the mare both are in the same or in a recognized stud book. So, and everything else, what you can develop from this very classic way of recording a foal in a stud book is a derivative of this simple procedure. Today, much more complicated, because today we have embryo transfer and all these things, all understood. But the principles are always the same. You want to enter the foal in the book, and you have to prove that it is the descendant of particular parents and that those parents comply with certain requirements. So that's what you have to do. So, and what I found when I was confronted with the problem was that I saw on the internet a lot of very good information, I have to say, first of all, where breeders really got the necessary information, what they can do, what they have to do, which papers they need, what they have to submit, and under which conditions. For example, a mare owner could receive semen from a semen storage center or collection center, or because we are, of course, not so much now here in the natural covering, because okay, that is the most classic way, and there are witnesses of this covering act, like for the thoroughbreds, for example, of course, which describe this very well. But here we are a bit more distant, so we speak about insemination in the widest sense. So, and I must say what I found, but I may be wrong because I cannot check all the websites, was mainly very good information. That is encouraging, I would say. Now, for the for your records and for your follow-up inquiries, of course, I refer to the animal breeding regulation, which is from 2016, and is the basis for our discussion. It's a regulation, so it is a new it's a new nature of this legal act. Before we had directives, which were in a horizontal, no, in a vertical way by species. Now we have one breeding regulation with a couple of specific annexes. In particular, I think the most specific rules are definitely for equine animals, because they are the more complicated one in compared to cattle or sheep or pigs, for example, when we speak about the breeding. Okay, that is the reference. You can always go back and see. There is a relationship between the animal breeding and the animal health. And of course, all this together has something also to do with the access to the competitions, where in fact you can reserve certain competitions for animals, which breeding animals or animals which are entered in particular stud books. So that's just to draw the line on the interrelationship between different legislation. And the animal health legislation, of course, is also an important part of the equine identification. But the equine identification legislation is related also to the breeding, because it's a question of who is issuing the passports and which information on the breeding particularities are included in the horse passport. So that's why there is an interrelation between those pieces of legislation. The breeding regulation is, as I said, is not made for reproduction per se. It is done. It's a legislation which addresses problems where animals are intended to be entered as purebred breeding animals in a breeding book. And then we have a whole set of rules around this, which starts from the approval of the breeding, first of the recognition of the breed society as a body, then the approval of the breeding program by the competent authorities. Then basically on this place everything ends for the competent authorities, and from now on it is a question of the industry, that means the breed society, to manage the breeding, because the breed is defined as the result of a mutual understanding of breeders that they want to multiply and to select for certain features the breeding animals. So that means this idea of a group of people that have agreed on a breeding goal, on a way to breed, and on what they want to breed at the end of the day. That is the basis for the whole breeding regulation. That's why for the first time in this legislation now, this regulation has a definition of the breed. Before, everybody tried to avoid this. So, but we did it, and at the end of the day, that is the heart of the whole legislation. It says that is a legislation for which should facilitate the entry of a product of breeding in a particular breeding book, but it also says that that the member states have, of course, the possibility to regulate also the breeding or the reproduction, if you want, of animals where the aim is not the entry of the breeding product in a recognized stud book or breeding book, as we call it in this regulation. And of course, it's always this warning in almost all legislation that the member states shall not use this this regulation for unnecessary let's say, impediment to impede the use of purebred breeding animals or germinal products for other purposes. So if you just want to have a cow to produce milk and you don't care about the genetics as such, you still can use the semen of a top class bull, which is entered in a breeding book, and simply reproduce cows. That you always can do. So that these are the two explanations given in this regulation. We have a number of relevant definitions, of course, but you can read it yourself, of course. And the main thing is here really that there is a competent authority, and the competent authority has a very limited role, in fact, to play, as they would only recognize the breed society, approve the breeding program, and then carry out normal controls according to certain control rules, that they can go back and can check the breed society, that the books are correct, and so on and so on. But they are not really involved in all subsequent steps in the day-to-day business of these breed societies. So that is the difference. If we later on see what is the situation in the animal health area. So yeah, so this is in respect of the basics. So for the as if you remember the third slide in the problem description, we clearly said what you need is somehow a proof on the origin of your animal, and I mean genetic origin of your animal, and that is of course the zootechnical certificate. For the horses, the zootechnical certificate for the horse, for the live horse or donkey, any equine, it is all included in the single lifetime identification document. That is different to the situation in cattle or pigs or whatever, but in horses it is included in the passport. So this made it also very complicated with the issuing of the identification document, because first the horse is born as a horse, and later on it becomes a stud book horse. And who is now issuing the passport, and how can you upgrade a passport, and so on. So all these problems had to be solved in the course of the development of this legislation. But the principle is for life horses or equine, the zootechnical certificate is part of the horse passport. Yeah, in simple language, horse passport. So, and then these horse passports I mentioned already, they are issued by these breed societies, can be issued by the breed societies. That's why we have, for the member states, we have a list of the recognized breed societies and breeding operations. That is only, the last one is only for hybrid breeding pigs. But in fact, the list of recognized breed societies is the list of stud books that exist in the European Union, and they are listed and available on the Commission website. So the Commission assists the member states to disseminate this information. Like this here. For example, So you have them all for, now you can click Austria and you will find, I don't know, 15 or 20 different stud books and many more for cattle and sheep and pigs and so on. So that is the way that you can be sure if you deal according to the information available and to the documents in the delegated, in the basic regulation, the delegated regulations, and the implementing regulations, which have an increased level of detail. Then of course you will be always on the safe side, and that is what we are discussing. Yeah? That is, if you follow these rules, strictly these rules, you have the legal right that your foal will be entered in the stud. So that is the most important thing. There may be other ways to do. There may be agreements or simple ways. I don't know. It's all possible. But if you follow these rules, this is the basis for your legal right that you can go to court and you can claim your right if you follow all these rules. So you receive the papers from a recognized breed society. The breed society, in fact, can only be recognized if they have an approved breeding program. And if your animal fits into this program, either because the origin of your breeding animals, parents, stallion and mare, is they are already in the stud book of this breed society, or they are in the stud book of a breed society that is recognized by the ones you intend to enter the foal. That is where you have the legal right to go forward. And it's in fact the same system, not very much different, if we speak about third countries. So if you want to enter, I don't know, a quarter horse from the United States, you will find that under United States there is a recognized stud book, and if you take from there, you can then enter these foals here in, let's say, in the German stud book for quarter horses, as an example. So that is the main thing. You follow the rules and you have the legal right of entry. So what is the of course the animal, I mean, there are some basic requirements for entry in this in the particular section of the breeding book. We speak about the principal or main section of the breeding book. We have not regulated on the movements into the supplementary sections, or Vorbuch in German genannt, it's also called. So in the supplementary section, we have not regulated. We have only regulated the upgrade from the supplementary section into the main section. So this upgrade is regulated, but the trade between the member states or between the various breed societies in breeding animal, or in fact they are not breeding animals by definition, but in animals used for breeding, but in the supplementary section, that is a matter for the breed societies to regulate this. And we have not even harmonized a certificate, a breeding certificate for them, because that's not the part that is regulated at EU level. So. And what we have here is the classes. The classes. It's very important that we have this rule on the classes: a basic class, and then you have merit classes. So, in fact, this is to solve the problem between the quality of the breeding animals and the principles for entering breeding animals in breeding books. So even if you don't like the stallion, even if you say, no, this is not really a good stallion, you still cannot exclude the stallion from the breeding book. You have then to establish classes and then put these stallions in the lowest class, and breed with the higher classes, the premium classes, and so on, mainly, and promote those stallions. So that is the principle of the classes. Supplementary section I spoke already, and of course you have the possibility to have your breeding products entered in more than one book, because if, I don't know, let's say German warm blood or something, there are some of these stud books that recognize several other stud books. It's possible, yeah. You can have them with the Hanoverians, but also in a different stud book also recognized. So that's possible, but it's really a particularity for horses, because there you have this type of stud books that breed for particular purposes, only for jumping, only for dressage, only for this one, and so, and they have a particular way of selecting their animals. Many of them already entered in a different stud book before, because by the time you know that this horse is good for jumping, the horse has to be identified already, and so on. It is already a purebred animal with all the privileges arising from this situation before somebody decides that he wants to have it also for particular breeding purposes. So the important is that the breed society, they have to enter the animal on request of the breeder. So it's an activity of the breeder. The breeder has to go to the stud book, to the breed society, and has to say, here I have an animal. I want you to enter this animal in this particular book. And then they will judge the animal, and we say, no, it's not first class, it's only second class or whatever. I don't know. But that's the best. So it's an activity of the breeder. It's not that somebody will come and ask you. You have to go and you have to say, I'm active here, I want. And then you have to apply, and then of course you have to provide the proof, what we spoke about already in the beginning. So the pedigree has been established, it's identified, and it is documented. So it's a document that can prove that this foal is descendant of this stallion and this mare. So that's what you have to prove. As I said, originally foal at food, but today, of course, there are other ways. You can use a DNA or a blood group or whatever. There are many ways to do this, but the basic is still the records, that you have an uninterrupted chain of records that prove the genealogy of the breeding animals. So, and then we have the certificates. That is the proof. That is the documentary proof what type of animal we are talking about, and here we have the part of the in the horse passport displayed. But okay, I spoke about this, so we can go ahead, and then we have a specific implementing regulation where we speak about the sorry, this is the part of the, so that is the part of the identification of the animal, and that is the part of the genealogy of the horse in the passport. And then we have, of course, the model forms for zootechnical certificates, and if you use them, you are always on the safe side. So if you can present your foal together with all these documents, you are on the safe side. Nobody can argue with you. So about the genetics of your animal. So we have these various zootechnical certificates for the different species, of course, but for the horses, as I said, it's a special case in the passport. And then we have it for the semen. We have this for oocytes, and we have this for embryos. But that is genetics, and it doesn't matter how you get the male DNA into the oocyte, whether there is a special technique or whatever reproduction method, nobody cares about. Here we speak about genetic. The semen comes from the stallion, this is the mare, and this together is the origin of this foal. That's what you have to prove. And it's all provided for in the certificate. This certificate, the breeder can always request from the breed society. So if, I don't know, for whatever reason, somebody buys semen of a particular stallion and wants later on present the foal for the entry into the stud book, then he can go to the breed society of the stallion, the same for the mare, ask them for the zootechnical certificate, and presents all this to the steward, who will judge and inspect this foal before entry into the stud book. So that is the easy way to do. You have all the documents, and it doesn't matter how the foal was produced. Everywhere you have an unbroken chain of information. There is one thing, this in some cases where this is particularly authorized, the breed certificate, the zootechnical certificate, may be issued by a semen collection center or an embryo collection and production team. But they have to be approved for intra-union trade. While in general, these type of institutions, they all have to be recognized under the animal health law. When they trade from one member state to the other member state, they must in addition be approved. And the zootechnical legislation, they went back and say we need to have a reliable system if the zootechnical certificate is issued by insemination center, artificial insemination center, or embryo collection team and so on. If this is the case, we need the additional guarantees that we get through the approval procedure for animal health. So better documentation, harmonized way of documentation, and so on and so on. That is the reason why, in this case, an animal health requirement jumps into a breeding legal aspect, because we need these additional guarantees, the regulated quality of management in the approved semen collection center. So, and that is basically all what you need. And you have the right, you apply to the breed society, whatever it is. You say, I have here the semen of this. Can you certify that this, the pedigree, let's say, of the stallion, or of the stallion and the mare, if you speak about a surrogate mare that is carrying an implanted embryo. But then you have to have everything on paper to, when you present then this surrogate mother with the foal, which have genetically nothing to do with each other, to the inspector of the breed society for entry of the foal into the main section of the stud. So these are the principles. And from there, which again is the basis for the legal right of the breeder, everything is possible. I mean, in the case of maybe the stud book does not require this because they know the stallion and so on. That's all different. That is all possible, but it's not regulated. What is regulated is the normal way where you can prove and document each step that you need to have your animal entered in the book. So I say this here, the inter-union trade and the reference to the approved semen collection center or embryo collection team. And then the competent authority may authorize the non-use of the model forms. So this was a request which came not so much from the horses, but much more from the cattle and the pigs, where they say, yeah, but you know, all these boars and bulls, they are all on a catalog, and there you can find all the information, 15 generations, all the performance data that you cannot enter all in the certificate by hand or whatever. So there is other ways to document. That's fine. Where this is authorized, and that is not EU, that is competent authority in a member state, they can say, yes, Totilas is well known, the pedigree is freely available there and there and there. You can read 15 generations and all the performance and whatsoever. Okay, fine. If this is recognized, perfect. But it is a question for the member state, for the competent authority to authorize this. So that is a special case, which may happen and should normally may make the life more simple. I also included here a short statement, acceptance for breeding, because that is, of course, in particular important for the where we speak about semen and male breeding animals, stallions, where of course they have to have and they have to be accepted for breeding. So if you breed with a stallion that is if you breed with a stallion that is not accepted for breeding by the breed society, then you certainly have a nice foal and you can love it, but you have not necessarily the legal right that you can claim in the courts to have your foal entered in the book. So it's very clear. That is something. Maybe they will take it. Maybe they will put him in a supplementary section, or they check it, or they say, wait, we will see the development, and if the horse is good at the end of the day, maybe we will. And that's all possible. I'm not arguing about this, but important is that in this logical chain of requirements, the one is that the animal is accepted for breeding. So that is what I want to say. And of course, we know all that there could be an accident on a field, on the pasture, with a mare and a young stallion somewhere in the field next door. That is this is a special case, has to be dealt with in the sense of the breeding program and so on, with all precautions, but they do not constitute a case for legal right that I can claim in a court. So that is what I wanted to tell you about the breeding side of this, because we are a bit running short in time. There is the link then to, I mentioned already, it must be approved. If the zootechnical certificate is issued by an artificial insemination center or a embryo collection and production team, then it must be the one which is approved for intra-union trade in this type of terminal products. So, and the lists again is available, so you can see, and only from those you can accept a zootechnical certificate. So it's very simple. If somebody gives you a paper, because of course the models, they can be printed and can be completed, that's not so difficult, but you can cross-check and say, is this person at all entitled to issue a zootechnical certificate? Is this AI center authorized for this purpose because it is approved for intra-union trade. So you find it here and you can cross-check what you are going to do. Now, we are already on the way to the animal health. And of course, we have here the animal health law, which is the regulation 2016-429. And under this animal health regulation, it's there's a main principle. First, the animal health law addresses and describes certain risks. There is a list of diseases. There is a list, and they are associated with certain species of animals that could possibly transmit and spread certain diseases. There is a principle that all the previous time we called it holding, now it's called an establishment, they are all registered. So that is a new aspect in the animal health compared to the time before, when in particular for the horses, it was very, very loose. But now it's very clear. So we know each stable where a horse is kept. Each stable is known. So that's the basic legislation. And the basic legislation says that because there are risks inherent to the movement of animals, we need traceability. Traceability starts with the registration of the origin holding. It continues with the identification of the animal, and it doesn't finish with the documentation or the follow-up of any movement of the animal from one place to the other place. So that is a principle everywhere within the member state and between the member state and from outside into the union. So in the delegated acts, we are not focusing so much on this, let's say, on this movement within the member state. That is a question for the member states. You have the principles, you have to be aware of the risk, you have to know what is moved, from where to where, under which conditions, quantities, age, whatever. All these things you have to follow up. What the EU has regulated is then between the member states. If it goes from one member state to the other, or if it arrives from a third country into the single market. So there it's not important which member state. It arrives not in a member state, but it's imported into the single market. So that is important. So that is what the EU regulates then. And here we have, of course, the rules on the movement within the union of terrestrial animals. So these are also the rules for the movement of horses. And it could be a breeding stallion or a breeding mare that goes for natural mating or for insemination to a different place. So that is regulated in this regulation. And then you have the one specifically on the germinal products because they represent a different risk. Then on the one side, a single infected consignment of semen can spread a lot of diseases in multiple animals. If you speak about a cow, for example, the bull semen, maybe one ejaculate, I don't know, maybe 50 or 100 cows could spread the disease. Or on the other side, you have embryos that are washed and where the main risks are removed through the washing and the trypsin treatment of the embryo. So you see, it's not all is the same, and the semen has a different risk than the embryos, and all together have a different risk than the live donor animals. So that is regulated here. And for movement of these germinal products between from one member state to the other member state, there we need that these semen collection centers or embryo collection and production teams have to be approved. So that is the principle. And of course, these consignments from one member state to the other member state are accompanied by a certificate which is harmonized, and where this movement is entered in this IMSOC traces system in order to control and to have the record of the movement from one place to the other place. Now, I think, yeah, for the what is here now important is so the approved, then there are principal requirements for the animals in this level of the delegated regulation, and then you have, of course, more detailed requirements for the which are in the certificates in the implementing act. And important is that in respect of the German products, there are the diseases CM, so contagious equine metritis and equine viral arteritis, which do not play a role in the movement of animals, but they play a role in the trade in these German products, simply because of the, in particular for semen, the fact that you can infect more than one recipient animal when you split in ejaculate of a infected stallion, for example. So that is um, important to consider. This makes the risk a little bit different to the movement of live animals. So for this only one reason. And then we have laid down the certificates which detail all these requirements. And this is the regulation 2021-403, which is a mammoth regulation. I don't know, 900 pages or something. It's a complete nightmare to understand which certificate is approximative at what page. So that is certainly okay. This was a request of the legal service to have it all in one regulation, and this regulation, be aware, is constantly updated, constantly. Because there are all certificates in for the meat, for the dogs, for the cats, for I don't know what. And of course, always there is a little change, a comma missing, and somewhere is adding or whatever. There's always a problem in the. I mean, not a problem, but there's some modifications necessary. So you have to be aware that is a very complicated regulation, but that is the one where you will find all the detailed animal health requirements, as they have to be certified and attested by an official vet before either a breeding stallion or a breeding mare or their German products move from one member state to another member state. And here you have the various models for the animals and also for the German products. And it's exact the same, basically exact the same when we speak about the import. So we have rules for the entry of animals and the German products from third countries onto the single market, into the EU, into different whatever member states. The principles are laid down in this delegated regulation. And of course, the main thing here is that the third country has to be approved for this type of import from an animal health point of view. It must be listed. So there must be a list, and the list is actually not in the 21-403 where the certificates are, but in the 2021/404 regulation. That is the list, and there it is said that from the US you can import a live horse for sport or whatever, but you also can import semen, equine embryos, and so on. So that is all set up in this list to say which commodity is actually allowed. To give you an example, semen from a bull, I know it's a bit outside, semen from a bull from Israel is not allowed because they have FMD. But a washed embryo from one of the Israelis, very high performing cows, would be allowed because you can wash off the risks and treat the embryo with trypsin so that there is no FMD risk associated with this embryo. So you have to consult when you buy from third countries which type of germinal product or live animals is allowed from this particular country. So in the case of Israel, just to give an example, a cow cannot come, semen cannot come, but treated embryos, washed and treated embryos, they could come. So that is how the list works, depending on the risks that have been assessed and for which a country is approved. And here you see for the United Arab Emirates, for example, that they are allowed for semen from registered horses. So we would not allow them semen of a donkey. Also, they have very nice donkeys in the Arab Emirates, but we would not allow this. We would only allow from a registered horse the semen. To give you an example on how this list is constructed and what you have to consult before you buy. So then you have the various certificates that have to accompany this type of germinal products, and yeah, that's basically all what I in quick wanted to present to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Füssel. I think a lot of food for thought for us and a lot of detail. Definitely a great presentation for us to go over again. And thank you also for signposting all the various regulations so that we know where we can find relevant information. One of the questions that has come up right from the outset is from a colleague of mine, Celia Clark in the UK. She chairs something called the 8-6 Committee, which is a group of stud books in the UK. And one thing that we're finding difficult from a third country perspective at the moment is that as the regulation evolves and becomes more and more complicated, is things like the speedy processing of chilled semen coming into our country from the EU. Of course, we are trying to be to be fully compliant. Well, we have to be fully compliant. I think as a third country, in fact, we almost have to follow everything to the letter to make sure we maintain our third country status. So thank you very much for also referring to third countries in your presentation.
But may I a little bit correct you? So the basic law is almost carved in stone. The basic legislation, both for breeding and for animal health. The delegated regulations, very difficult to modify. There have been a few corrections in the early state where people realized, okay, we were not correct enough, and so. But now I think it's the handling of the managing of the legislation, and that means if you have a new breed society, or if you have a new approved semen collection center, for example, or embryo collection team, then of course to have it on the list will take some time. That's correct, but it's not so much that the principles of the legislation are now constantly modified. Also, the certificates are almost finished. We have ironed out a few mistakes, if you want, but not really major issues now, because the process is so complicated.
Yes, quite. Oh, thank you very much. That's good to hear. Now, I had another question. While we invite everybody, please, to put your questions into the chat now. We had another question sent to us. What does somebody practically do if they buy some semen, for example, at an auction, and they are always advertised, on Facebook? Here's an online auction for some frozen semen of, this or that stallion, and the semen arrives, and they want to use that semen, but there is no zootechnic certificate. What does the breeder do next?
No, the breeder, that's what I said. The breeder has the right, independently of any membership or whatsoever, with the breed society, the breeder has the right to request for the breeding animal or the germinal products a zootechnical certificate. So because they make a business out of this. So it's clear. It's not the breeder pays a high price for the semen of totilas. But he has the right to say, I have the semen, and you send me now already the zootechnical certificate so that I can afterwards enter the foal in the book. That's all. That's the right.
But it is the stud book that issues the certificate unless
unless the competent authority has authorized that they can do it via an insemination center. But the address for the breeder is the breed society. They are in charge. They are responsible because they are the only ones who have the details.
Yes, quite. The problem, of course, being that how do I know as a breed society that if somebody has an auction of frozen semen and sells the semen, they really send the right semen? I'm not involved in I might not even know the person who sold the semen.
Okay, but I mean, that is now a guarantee that if somebody sells you the semen of totilas for 10,000 euros a portion or a doses, then you want to be sure it's totilas and not the brother or the son of totilas. That's for sure. So that's why you have to look on this, and you have to ask for this semen, because there must be documents until this semen has reached the auction, when it was collected, where it was collected, by whom it was collected, and so on, and who was the donor stallion. So, and that is a matter for the breed society. So, and that is your choice before that. You have to be sure what you are doing. You want to have a foal, that's fine. You want to have a foal in the book, then you have to prepare yourself and to see which documents you need. And you have 11 months time to do this.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it is just sometimes difficult. I mean, I've just had a conversation, in fact, with a stallion owner who had some 25-year-old semen in their tank, way before any zootechnic certificate, and somebody wants to use that semen. And it's hard then to work out how you issue that level of guarantee without a DNA test, actually.
Yeah, could be, but on the other side, we should be aware that an investigation in the stud book of the Lipizzian horses has shown that despite all the war troubles and so on, the mistakes they have made in their books is minute. It's minute. And those horses went out, were stabled somewhere, came back, and so on and so on. And the people didn't have DNA. The people only had records and memories, and still you can do it. So that is certainly a problem. Yes, with old semen, I understand this. We have, for the animal health, we have rules that go back, so that we would not compromise the trade in semen that was eligible for trade at the time, but would not be necessarily under today's rules. So we say, okay, this could have been traded before, so it was safe, so it can come. So that is, from an animal's point of view, we go back to the origin of our animal health legislation on this subject. And the breeding is not, I mean, we are talking about the 90s. So the 90s, when the legislation on breeding of horses was enforced, and there was not so much different. So also the documents had to be there before. So,
but as a stud book, say for example, I have a breeder who now said to me, this is a little bit based on a question now in our chat. I have frozen Darko semen in my tank. I'm now going to use it or sell it. You, as the Breed Society, now have to issue me a zootechnic certificate, because that's your duty to do. But
Darko came from Belgium.
Yes, but I can't see any documentation because it's so old, or the documentation is lost. It's just a semen. It's just a straw. What do I have to issue a certificate, or do I have any right as a stud book to say, no, I haven't seen the information I need to be able to issue a certificate?
Normally you should not have this semen in your approved semen storage center without documentation, because of course you must have a document which says this comes from Darko, and then you can go back, and then they can go back and they can say, okay, Darko was whatever, Belgian warm blood, BBP, and they go back and they find all the history of this stallion.
The problem being, of course, that
but the problem is it Darko, or is it the semen of his brother? And that is something, if he cannot prove this because of a broken chain of information, don't buy the semen. I mean, that is a guess. You can also throw a coin. So no. That is either the documents have to be there. As long as you have the semen, you have to have the documents. So
okay. And there's actually a sort of relating question. This relates to some stud books not following the rules, but I think in general, what measures can be taken to ensure that all parties involved? I think we were just talking about semen centers selling semen without documents. Now, this lady is referring to breed societies not following the rules. What measures for enforcement are or can be taken by the EU?
The only way is, and I started off with this, is all these breed societies, they are recognized by their competent authorities, and they have an approved breeding program. If there is a reason for complaint, the regulation, animal breeding regulation, contains a whole chapter on the controls to be carried out by the member states, and at the end, possibly by the Commission. But I mean, that is really then something very severe. But the competent authority, then they have, if they have proof that a breed society does not follow the rules, they have to address it to the competent authority in that member state that has recognized this breed society, and has to say, here I have proof, in this case, this and this is wrong. So, and then it's up to them to carry out controls, to check the books, and to come up with a conclusion.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Dr. Füssel. I think we've covered a lot in the Q&A, and thank you for your very interesting responses. It's been very helpful to have you here tonight. I think we all feel we have a bit more homework to do by reading through the texts and the links that you kindly shared with us. So everyone, just to reassure you, yes, you will be getting a link to the recording of this webinar, as well to the slides, which you can also see on the recording. So you'll have the information at your fingertips to follow this up. And I feel we are really here at the beginning of a really interesting conversation. So I'm sure there will be further conversations in future. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Füssel, and for your expertise.
No, I thank you for the invitation, and I would like to encourage all the breeders, please work with your breed society. That is your big asset. They know all the rules. They have all the information. They have all the connections, and they are your partners. And don't think that, okay, you may save a little money maybe on a fee, but at the end of the day, somebody has to maintain the books. Otherwise, we will run out of the books. So that would be a pity if we would not manage to maintain our traditional, maybe a bit too much continental. I have to say that's typical for the European, for the continent, rather for necessarily the UK. But anyway, the law is built on this, that the people work in a breed society, and they take as a breeder responsibility to leave the breed after their work better than it was before, as we said in the beginning.
Thank you so much. And
thank you.
wise words.
My pleasure.
You. And everybody have a nice evening. Thank you also, Nadine. Thank you all for participating. And yes, we'll hopefully see you again soon. Goodbye.
Great pleasure. Goodbye.